for joining us today. This is the first webinar that we're doing, and we just thought it'd be really useful to do something about coming out of lockdown, because there are so many reports starting to come out about how our health has suffered over the lockdown period. So I just would like to say as well, our counsellor who was meant to be with us today was feeling unwell, and so at the very last minute, like really at the last minute, we've got Lucy who's joining us, and she's a resilience coach. So thank you so much, Lucy, for joining us today and helping us on with the webinar. That's absolutely great. Thank you. So what we're going to be doing today, let's just go down a page. This is the overview of what we're going to be doing today. So we'll quickly go around and everyone's going to say hello, and then we're going to be talking about our health during lockdown. So that will be some of the stats that have come out. And then each of us can be doing a short 5-minute bit about the different subject areas. So we've got mental wellness, exercise and physical wellness, sleep, nutrition, hydration, then a summary, and then we'll have questions at the end. Do please feel free to use the chat option in here as well. So if you want to ask questions as we're going along, what we'll do is we'll keep them there, and then we'll look at them at the end and go through them. So I think Helen, who's watching, is going to start off the chat section. So if you don't know what to do, you just answer and it goes out to everyone, and we'll be able to see them at the end of the webinar as well. So right, so we go for team introductions. So here are the team. So we'll go. So Abigail, would you like to say hello?
Hi everyone. I'm Abigail. I am currently in Melbourne in lockdown, but I qualified as a nutritionist from the University of Leeds last year, and I'm interning for Paula at the moment, so I'm really enjoying working with Hartwood Health. So yeah, I'll pass you on to the next team member.
So, Lydia?
Hi everyone, I'm Lydia. I'm a physio with Hartwood Health. I'm also an MSc student in Performing Arts Medicine and a dance teacher.
Rebecca? Hi Rebecca. Maybe we've lost Rebecca for the minute. Lucy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Lucy. I'm a resilience coach, focusing on emotional agility, working with individuals, but also doing group work as well.
Thank you. And I'm Paula, and I'm a dietitian, and I set up Hartwood Health in October 2019. Just see if Rebecca is still here. Maybe she's dipped out and coming back in later.
Hi.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, you are here.
I am here. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to say hello, Rebecca?
Hi everyone.
Okay. Oh, I think it's a breaking up there. Hopefully, right. Hopefully, it'll be fine when we get to your bit. Right. Okay. So lockdown. What has been happening during lockdown? Oh. So, two sets of statistics that we've been looking at. So we've got the Office of National Statistics and also statistics from King's College London. So this is just the Office of National Statistics collect different sets of data. So these are the most two comparable ones. So it's just looking at how our well-being's been affected over the time period from the end of May to just recently in July. And as you can see, that our well-being is staying sort of like roughly about the same. It has been affected, but may possibly starting to come down. Feeling stressed or anxious, that's reported that it has gone up, and that people are reporting that their mental health is worse as well. So the other set of stats that we look at, King's College London, so this was right at the beginning of lockdown. So this was saying that 50% felt more anxious or depressed, and in the last survey that they did, we were reporting that we were still anxious or depressed, but it had gone down very slightly. As you can see, alcohol, we reported that we were drinking more alcohol than normal, back in April, and that has continued to increase. People weren't sleeping well. They didn't ask the same question, so again we can't compare all of these, but people were sleeping less well or not sleeping as much right at the beginning. Whether this has improved or not, I don't know. And people were eating more food or eating less healthily. people have put on weight and people are feeling more lonely than normal. So it's had a big effect on our health, you know. And when you think back to actually what happened in lockdown, we had a lot of things just sort of like turned on their heads. You know, we couldn't actually access, well, we could access food, but food availability, you know, we couldn't get certain things like bread and pasta and toilet rolls. People were being furloughed. We didn't know what was going to be happening. We were given very much sort of conflicting information about what was happening with COVID. And it was quite a sort of like, you know, an unknown situation. And as we're progressing through that, we're starting to get back to, you know, that we are able to access food and we're beginning to accept it as a bit more normal. But we've still got the worries about lots of people being made redundant. We still don't know whether there's going to be a second peak. There's still conflict of sort of like information going on as well. So it's a very confusing time. So it's really about, you know, trying to put everything in perspective. And also I think knowing that, you know, you're not the only one if you are thinking like this, or if you have put on weight, or if you have drunk more. It's happening to lots of us. So I'm now going to hand over to Lucy, who's going to talk about our mental wellness over this time and going forward. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you for that. Well, I'd like to talk about how the lockdown has impacted on our emotional well-being. As we know, there's been absolutely nothing typical about the last few months. And certainly the spring and summer of 2020 has been something to give to history. And it's fine, that's okay, because we have to accept that there's nothing normal about it. We've all adjusted and we found a new normal. And that's what resilience is. It's the ability to adapt our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviour under extreme pressure. So I think it's fair to say we've all been tested to the extreme. We've all weathered the storm, but we're all on our own journey. And so we're all different from each other. It's easy to forget, that we've got our own ship to navigate. So what I'd like to do is just remind you that it is normal to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. And it might not be the same as the next person, and that's okay. I would like you though to ask yourself some questions as we start to move forward out of lockdown. So what coping mechanisms have got you through this? What's helped you deal with the impact that it's had on your well-being, your family and your life? What coping strategies would you like to say, thank you, but I no longer need you? And which coping strategies would you like to hang on to? The feelings that the pandemic brought range for all of us. There's been fear, denial. We've broadened our sense of humour somewhat. We've also felt disorientated. We felt lost. These are all defence mechanisms that have helped us through what we've experienced, the loss that we've experienced. And the loss has cast its net so wide. The loss of security, schooling, finances, health, income, identity, independence, safety for so many people, and of course the loss of life. So as we come towards the end of lockdown and the beginning of the next chapter, I feel like we're in a bit of a limbo. We're not really sure where we're going to go, but we might feel fatigued, excited, we might feel ready for something new, or we might feel completely empty. And whatever it is that we're feeling, like we say, it's all completely normal. I think the most important thing to do is look at your own internal story, what your setup is for you, and don't judge anybody else, because we can't know the stories that people carry with them. So if you don't mind, I'll just share a few little tips as we move on, and hopefully you'll take something with you. Firstly, I would like to say, if you fear the virus, as in you are afraid that you will catch the virus, you will come down with COVID, that is completely rational. We're in the middle of a pandemic. So first of all, I would just urge you all to look at the guidelines in your area and apply them to your individual needs and circumstances, not other people's. I'd like you to acknowledge your feelings, accept how you are feeling, and if you can, please confide in somebody you trust, in loved ones, in family, in friends, If you feel you need access to services, connect. Please connect. Express your feelings, but also allow others to express their feelings too without judging. This leads us to allowing the next one, to allow others to behave the way they do without taking their actions on for ourselves, without any judgment. We can't know anyone else's internal stories. We can't know why people behave the way they do and the choices that they make. We only know what we do. And we have to be happy with what we do. What I hope is that the last few months has helped you realise your own values. How do you want to live your life as we move on? And I don't know about you, but I kept seeing lots of posts during lockdown saying, now it's time to do a new course. Now it's time to get a new talent. Now it's time to improve yourself and develop yourself. Well, actually, for most of us, lockdown was just about keeping safe and getting through each day. But hopefully in that you've found some time to reflect on what your values are. And if you haven't, I would urge you all to do that. Because many of us do live our lives aligned to someone else's values, or the values of the organisation we work for, the values of our friends. Perhaps now would be a good time to look at your own values and see how you can move forward living aligned to those. I always find that if a day isn't going very well for me, I have to have a check-in with myself. In whose life am I leading right now? And I find I have those better days when I am being led by my own moral compass, not somebody else's. I would say also the next point would be to set small goals for yourself. Don't take anything on too big. Celebrate when you achieve your goals, and definitely don't beat yourself up if you don't. It's okay. Be flexible with your goals. They're your goals, nobody else's. Play around with them, but please do try and challenge yourself every day. That might be anything from going for a walk for 20 minutes. It might be reading something new and interesting that you didn't know before. It might actually be reducing your alcohol consumption by a unit or two. It could be absolutely anything. Play around with them, find what works for you, and find something that when you go to bed at night, you think, yeah, I did that. Tell people about your goals if you feel you can, and they will help you towards them. And share the celebration with other people. My next tip would be to balance the negative with some positive. And the last few months has all been quite crunchy, negative. You turn on the news, there's nothing very joyful there, and it's easy to get sucked into that, and it's easy to let that negativity swamp us. So what I try and do, it is hard sometimes, but what I try and do is, if I have an hour of being in a negative space, so watching the news for example, I schedule time at least an hour, usually more, when it's full of joy, positive, and that might just be dancing around my kitchen, it might just be hanging out with friends over Zoom, it could be anything, but I try and balance that out. And I would say definitely don't get caught in the glossiness of social media, and we've all been there. And we scroll through social media and we see all these fabulous things happening, lovely families getting on, promotions, everything. We just see it all going on. It's not real, it's gloss. I use social media as a family album, and I've got lovely pictures of my family. And when people say it, it's just hard to hear the noise that goes on behind the scenes. Trust me, there's a lot of noise. And people use social media to celebrate, to show, to remind themselves, and that's perfect, that's absolutely fine, but don't get sucked into it. And don't compare what's going on with something that's not quite real. And I would say most of all, just take your time. Figure out what works for you. Find an escape. That might be meditation. I'm a big fan of journaling, narrative therapy. Write down anything that's going on for you. I'm a big fan of exercise your way, whatever that is for you, yoga, walking, climbing, swimming, anything, whatever works for you. I really think that that is a good leveler. And as we've said, as Paula said, alcohol and food consumptions, we used it a lot for comfort. Of course we did. I would still say continue to have fun with it, but maybe just be a bit more mindful. And if you do feel like you need any help with the alcohol, with the food consumptions, seek help, seek some support, and know that this is completely normal. And you've got through this pandemic the last few months. You can do this. You can absolutely do this.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Lucy. There's some great bits of information and tips in there. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for stepping in so last minute.
Oh, you're welcome. That's fun.
That's great. Thank you. Sorry about flicking backwards and forwards with the slides. I was trying to just put something in chat and it kept on flicking the slides backwards and forwards. So sorry about that. So we should go on to Lydia next. I'll just what's come out of this. Who's going to talk about exercise?
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm physio, going to be talking about exercise and physical health. So I think everyone sort of is aware that exercise and physical activity is really good for your mental and physical health and helps to reduce the risk of loads and loads of life and work threatening illnesses. So I don't need to dwell on that too much, but the guidelines for physical activity and exercise haven't changed since before lockdown. Now, the current guidelines for adults in the UK is 30 minutes moderate physical activity 5 times a week, and you've probably also heard of the recommended 10,000 steps a day. Now, it's reasonable to look at those two guidelines and think they're unachievable, I can't do those. And some people were doing them before lockdown happened and some people weren't, and certainly everybody, doesn't matter who you are, you were probably struggling to achieve those guidelines during lockdown. So it's important to have a look at what the guidelines are, acknowledge that they are guidelines, they're not rules, you don't have to achieve them tomorrow, but they are things to aim for, they are targets. And moderate physical activity is not necessarily exercise. So what is moderate physical activity? Well, it's basically anything that increases your heart rate slightly, increases your breathing rate slightly, and it might leave you feeling a little bit sweaty afterwards. So it can literally be anything from going for a walk, doing an exercise class, but also housework, gardening, they all count, as long as they make you feel like you need to have a little bit of a sit down afterwards, but don't leave you necessarily feeling exhausted. We also realise that 30 minutes in one go can be quite a long time, especially if you're working every day. So it's all right if every now and again you want to split your 30 minutes into 10-minute chunks and do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at lunch, 10 minutes in the evening. That's completely realistic. Now, the 10,000 steps a day, again, is a guideline, it's a target. And most people won't be achieving anything close to that in lockdown. So it's important to work out what your average step is now. Doesn't matter what it was before lockdown, what is your average step now? And you can work that out using a pedometer or using your smartphone's health app. If you are somebody that's currently achieving 8,000 to 9,000 steps a day, then yeah, 10,000 steps is completely reasonable as a target for you to be aiming for. If your current step count is 3,000 steps a day, 10 is too big a jump, it's too big a goal, and it's not going to be achievable, and you're going to lose motivation. So I recommend that you figure out what your current step count is, and then as a target, add 1,000, 2,000 steps to it. Once you're achieving those steps every day, you can add another 1,000 or 2,000 steps. Keep gradually increasing them as you progress until you reach that 10,000 steps a day. But you have to remember that different types of physical activity have different benefits. So a physical activity that does leave you feeling a bit sweaty, that lasts for half an hour or so, that increases your heart rate, your breathing rate, they're going to be really good for your lung function and your heart function. They're going to help improve your overall stamina, if you like. But other activities involve heavy lifting, that things that are physically difficult to do for your muscles is going to be useful for strengthening your muscles and your bone health. So the best physical activity routine, and notice I'm avoiding the word exercise here, is a combination of both of those things. Okay, something that improves your heart and lung function, but also improves your muscle and your bone health. When it comes to exercise and physical activity, the only competition is you. So make your goals short term, something that you can achieve in 1 to 2 weeks. Make them achievable. So something that's not actually that far off what you're doing already, and something you're going to enjoy. Because if you're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to do it, you're going to give up, and there's no point. Your body will respond to whatever physical pressures you put on yourself. So as long as your activity is difficult, your body will get better to accommodate that sort of pressure. Now, if you don't continue to progress your exercise, you will plateau, and eventually you'll stop getting fitter until you make your activity more difficult. So you can progress your activity by going more frequently, or you can make your activity longer, doing it for longer, or you can make it more difficult, as in putting more effort in, going a bit faster, going, if we're talking walking, going faster, or choosing a hillier route or something like that. Now, the final thing to talk about is posture, and that's something that I get asked about all the time. Is people tell me their posture's bad, or X, Y, and Z. How do I get good posture? The truth is, there is no best posture. It doesn't matter how beautifully straight your shoulders are, how tall your back is, how long your neck is. If you're in that position for more than 30 minutes, it's going to get painful, because the muscles that you use to adopt that posture will get tired, and your other muscles will take over, causing shearing forces, causing pain. Okay, ultimately the best posture is to change posture every 20 to 30 minutes. Get up, move around, go make a cup of coffee, do a couple of exercises, then go back to what you're doing, and that counts at home, at work, whatever it is you're doing. So all physical activity counts. You are the only competition. Set your own goals and progress them to make your activity more difficult, and let your body respond a bit better. And the best posture is a changing posture. All right, I'm going to leave it there. I ran through that very quickly, but hopefully that made some sense, and I'll pass on to the next.
Oh, thank you very much, Lydia. That was great, really informative. So on to Rebecca now to talk about sleep. Oh, sorry, just seeing Rebecca's entered the, she must have gone out of the, dropped out and coming back in. Rebecca, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I think I'm having really bad connectivity problems today. Hi everyone, sorry to keep you waiting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll make a start. So I'm going to be talking to you about sleep, and mostly about why sleep is important to us. So sleep is an important part of our existence. It helps us restore and improve physical health, cognitive abilities, emotional state, and well-being. Sleep is important not only to help us recuperate and energize, but also to restore learning and develop stored memory. The statistics by the National Sleep Foundation reports that 16 million UK adults are suffering from sleepless nights, and a third say they suffer from insomnia. Now, the effects of such conditions, as statistics suggest, can manifest in a person having reduced cognitive ability, find themselves having impaired decision-making skills, increases a person's risk of mental health problems like anxiety and depression, increases the risk of obesity and one's awareness of pain, increases the risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and can reduce a person's libido and sexual function. So how much sleep does a person require? So sleep.org has done research that shows us that children under the age of 12 need between 9 and 12 hours of sleep a day, whereas teenagers up to the age of 18 will require 8 to 10 hours of sleep a day, and adults between 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. Now, this is just a guideline and will vary from person to person, and various factors will contribute to how much sleep you actually need. But it's just a guideline of what we should be aiming to achieve. So what conditions are required to initiate our sleep? In physiological terms, there are three main things that we need to be in line with in order for sleep to occur. One is melatonin, which is a hormone which is responsible for sleep. This needs to be high and is generally triggered by darkness, which is why we get our best amount of sleep and the best sleep during the night when it's nice and dark, and generally if you are sleeping in a dark room. Cortisol is another hormone, which is a stress hormone, and this needs to be low in order to facilitate good sleep. Now, for cortisol to be low, we would need to moderate and manage our mental health status as well as how we manage our stress. And then having a good body temperature that is cool, so not too hot or not too cold, is optimum for initiating sleep. So what affects our sleep? Extensive research shows that blue light, which is found in TV, laptops, iPads, mobile phones, affects our ability to fall asleep. Therefore, it is advised not to use technology before bed, preferably 30 minutes before going to bed. Plan on going to bed after you finish working or sending emails or working, and try to avoid working very late at night. Ensure you try and maintain a regular sleep time, and this will also benefit how good or how you actually fall asleep. Avoid drinking caffeine and alcohol just before bed, ideally 4 hours before bed, as caffeine and alcohol may make it difficult for you to fall asleep, but also cause you to sleep very lightly. And this may mean that you will not have a very good or rested sleep. Try and avoid eating large meals before bed, as this may impair the ability for you to digest your food before you actually go to sleep. And going to sleep with a full tummy may make it difficult for you to actually fall off to sleep. So how can we improve our sleep? Try adopting a good sleep routine, which should include waking up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time each night. Try things that help you relax, such as a warm bath, a warm drink that does not contain caffeine or alcohol, or yoga or meditation. These are prescribed things that actually do work in trying to relax you. Having a good amount of physical activity in your body, or physical exercise. So having a good routine of exercises during the day that can help you regulate your body temperature. Eating healthy, having a healthy diet, which is a balanced diet with adequate amounts of fruit and veg, and ensuring you don't eat heavy meals just before bed. And this could all help you ensure that you have a good night's sleep. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rebecca. So, and now I shall go on to myself. Still muted, sorry. So thank you very much, Rebecca. So we'll go on to the next slide. We're going to talk about nutrition now. So nutrition. So there is lots of confusing and conflicting information around about what we should and shouldn't be eating. We've probably heard of ketogenic diets, low carbohydrate diets, intermittent fasting, prebiotics, probiotics, lots of different things. And, you know, anytime you Google anything on nutrition, then you have lots of conflicting information. But the message is, and the message has been around for a long time, and most people go, oh, that's so boring, it's not very exciting. It's all about having a balanced intake. So what is a balanced intake? What we're talking about is making sure that on a daily basis you are having complex carbohydrates such as bread, cereals, rice, pasta, potatoes, grains, protein, so you're looking there at meat, poultry, fish, eggs, nuts, vegetarian sources, you know, like tofu and soya. Fat, so we need to have fat in our diet, plays a very important role. So you're looking at unsaturated sources, so we're looking at polyunsaturated and monounsaturated sources of fat. So there we're looking, monounsaturated is olive oil and rapeseed oil, polyunsaturated is sunflower oil, which also gives us the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. Fruits and vegetables, as we all know, we should be aiming for at least 5 fruit and veg a day, and then dairy products as well, so milk and cheese and yogurts. So that's when we talk about a balanced intake, and why we talk about that is because that gives us all the nutrients that we need to function on a daily basis. So how much do we know that we need? So we know, research has shown us that during our different life stages, we need different amounts of the different nutrients. So when you look at, you know, when you're a baby and you're growing, child, young adult, older adult, they all affect our requirements. We'll have different requirements for different nutrients during those times. It's also affected by whether you're male or female, how physically active you are, so whether that's exercise or the type of job you do. Illness will affect your nutrient requirements as well, and also pregnancy. So, like I say, our requirements are very different, but we still need to make sure that we're getting everything from having those different food groups. So if we remove a food group from our diet, this is where we can put ourselves at risk of nutritional deficiency, and that can have a big effect on us. So for examples of nutritional deficiencies, I don't know if any of you have ever had a low iron and how awful you felt with low iron. That can then go through to full-blown anemia. So if you may be starting off being a vegetarian, you're not getting the right sources of protein in your diet, you're not having enough, you could be at risk of low iron stores, or like I say, going through to anemia. Things like zinc can lead to depression, irritability if that has come out of your diet. Again, that's provided by foods such as meat. And so if you're taking that out, there are situations where medically you do need to avoid certain foods if you've got intolerances to foods or sensitivities. So something like celiac disease, where you would have you're very sensitive to gluten, you'd have to remove all gluten containing products out of the diet, which usually come across in the form of removing a lot of complex carbohydrates. But you need to replace those to making sure that you're getting the complex carbs back in your diet, because they're the main source of energy for the body. But if you have celiac disease, your calcium requirements are a lot higher than people that don't have celiac disease. So what I'm saying is, try and get everything from having a balanced diet. Try not to take out any food groups, because we do need a broad range of different foods to give us everything that we need. If you are at risk of deficiency, or you do have a deficiency, that's when we would advocate using supplements. But generally, if you're having a varied diet, you don't need to have supplements. So healthy eating doesn't need to be expensive. Hear lots of things about superfoods, and they're sort of like super expensive as well. Superfoods isn't actually a scientific term. It's a term it's a marketing term that's making us feel that we've got to buy these foods because of the wonderful properties they have. I mean, many of the foods they're rich in the source of like vitamins or minerals or antioxidants, so they do have a role to play, but not at the expense of taking other foods out of your diet. So you don't have to have all these different foods, all the superfoods every day. Just incorporate them into your usual daily intake. And also, talking about it not being expensive, don't rule out frozen foods, frozen fruit and veg, and frozen and tinned fruit and veg as well. They're just as good. And so with the frozen fruit and veg, they're actually harvested and usually frozen within 2 hours of being harvested. So their mineral and vitamin content stays really, it doesn't degrade over time. Whereas on the supermarket shelf, if it's been there for a few days, you might actually see some degradation. And again, with, looking at your eating patterns, set realistic targets of what you want to achieve. So if you want to lose 3 stone in 2 months, that's not really achievable. Likewise, you want to gain 1 stone in 1 month, that's not achievable. Break it down into smaller targets so that you feel that you're actually progressing, because once you set yourself unrealistic targets, you're not going to get there, and then you're going to go into that spiral of, I can't do this, I can't get to where I want to be. So those small targets, and again, celebrating. So again, reiterating what the other speakers have said. So that's just a whiz through of healthy eating. So I shall now pass on to Abigail for hydration.
Hello. So yes, I'm going to talk to you about hydration, and leading on from Paula and setting realistic targets. I think hydration is something that we can all really easily do, and it will really make us feel a whole lot better just by having that extra couple of glasses of water a day. So you may or may not know that we are made of 70 to 80% of water, and that's a lot. And water has so many roles in our body. We depend on water to survive. So every cell, every tissue and organ in your body needs water to function properly. So for example, your body uses water to maintain its temperature, to remove waste, lubricate your joints. So water's just needed for overall good health. So maintaining adequate hydration is really essential, and it's recommended that we drink around 6 to 8 glasses a day. 8 is sort of the golden number that people tend to have heard So that's around sort of 1.5 to 2 litres of fluid. But obviously, this is a reasonable goal, but however, different people are going to need slightly different amounts of water to stay hydrated. So for some people that will be 6, for some people that will be 10 glasses of water, purely if you're doing lots of exercise and sweating more, then you're going to need to hydrate yourself more. But most healthy people can stay well hydrated by drinking water when they, around 8 glasses. If you've let yourself become thirsty, that's often the sign that you're already dehydrated. So just constantly having a water bottle on you, just for like easy access, is great. For some people, fewer than 8 glasses may be enough, but 8 is the kind of the golden number. So a 5% drop in water levels can cause a 20 to 30% drop in your physical and cognitive performance, and that's a lot just from a 5% drop. So that can cause symptoms such as loss of concentration, irritability, headaches. So these are very common symptoms that actually just could all be related to being slightly dehydrated, just a little bit. So dehydration affects both your physical and mental performance. So the effects become more noticeable as the body gets progressively more dehydrated. So it's really important that you, again, always just have some easy access water to prevent those symptoms. Mild dehydration also slows metabolism by up to 3%. A lot of people don't know this one, but it's the #1 contributor to that sort of daytime fatigue. So in the office, in the afternoon, when you're having that slump, maybe just before you reach for that second coffee, just drink a glass of water first, see how you feel. So an easy way to assess your hydration is, to put simply, look at your urine, and that will be able to tell you the colour, how hydrated you are. So if it's darker in colour, you're more dehydrated, and also the frequency and volume. If you're only going for a 1 wee or 2 wees a day, then probably quite dehydrated. Whereas if it's much more dilute and you're going more often, then you're probably a little bit more hydrated. So carrying a water bottle on you, as I've just mentioned before, is a great way to just stay on top of it, because if you have it on you, even when maybe you're not that thirsty, you might just out of boredom or habit drink out of your water bottle, and that's actually a really good habit to get into. Whereas if you don't have that water bottle on you, you may go longer than you really want to without drinking. And the first choice of drink really should be water go to first. The foods we can eat as well can contribute to water, so about 20% of your fluid intake actually, and some foods in particular are much more sort of higher in water content. So that tends to be those watery fruits like melon, peaches and plums and grapefruit. So they're really hydrating to have as a snack or pudding, in salads or on top of your breakfast. So that's a great way to add in extra fluid into your diet. And when you're exercising, again, water always is the first port of call, unless you're doing exercise for over 90 minutes, but it probably doesn't relate to the majority of people. But even then, it's best you might make your own sport drink if you're doing more than 90 minutes of exercise, and that will just be 200 millilitres of squash, 8 to 800 millilitres of water, and a large pinch of salt. So you're not buying any sports drinks with lots of additives in it. And again, adding squash to water is a good way if you find water really boring to drink. Adding squash to water is a great way to sort of spice it up a bit. I do that myself. I find water quite boring to drink, and actually I drink more if I add squash into it. So that's definitely one of my tips to drink more, is to just add some no added sugar squash into some water. But yeah, that's great.
Oh, that's great, Abby. Thank you very much. So those were our little sections on the different bits of of health and well-being. Obviously there's lots more to say about it, but we just wanted to sort of like come across with our top tips. So we have put together some top tips. Oh, again. Sorry. Right. It was saying that I was muted. So we've got our top tips now that we can run through. So Lucy, do you want to just quickly do your first two?
Yes, thank you. So number one, I would say focus on the present. Don't worry about the future just yet. On the here and now, that's what's important. And communicate, stay connected, family, friends, and services when need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Lydia?
Top tips from me. So getting started, getting back into physical activity does not have to be exercise. It can be as simple as gardening, housework. Everything counts towards your 30 minutes a day. And the best posture is a changing posture. Try to avoid staying in any position at all for longer than 20 to 30 minutes if you want to avoid that stiff feeling.
Thank you. And Rebecca?
Avoid technology, blue light just before bed, and have a good sleep routine that will enable you to get good night's sleep.
Thank you. And so from me, enjoy your food and aim to have a balanced diet that includes all of the food groups most of the time. And also make positive changes to your diet that are sustainable in the long term. And Abby?
My ones would be to just aim to have your at least 1.5 litres of fluid each day. All fluids except alcohol count. So yes, your coffee can count. Check your wee and make sure that that there's plenty of it and it's light in colour.
Right, thank you very much. And I think the message that most of us are trying to also get across is it's about being, making small changes, but making sure that you're consistent with these changes and you're committed to them, because you will then see the change. Doing it sort of like most days as much as you can, but on the flip side of that, not beating yourself up when you don't get to do it, but it's all the small changes add up into big results. So there we are, that's the end of our webinar. We have run over slightly, so sorry about that, but do you have any questions at all, whether you want to sort of unmute yourself or put them in the chat section? I'll just put our contact details up there if you want to contact anyone. And as I said, Lucy joined us today, so she's a resilience coach. So if you want her details, contact me and I shall pass them on to Lucy. But there are details for Hartwood Health. And then we've recorded this today, and I'm going to stop the recording now for questions. And we were going to put it out on YouTube and on our website. If anyone doesn't want that, if you could please let me know, and then I'll just edit it so bits aren't in there. So any questions at all? And also if anyone would like the top 10 tips, we're happy to send those out to you as well.
May I ask just one quick question, Paula? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. It's just a quick question for Rebecca. I just wondered if sleep apps are any good, or should we avoid them? I don't know if she can hear me.
I'm unmuted now. Hi. So sleep apps have been designed to help people go to bed. However, trying to keep that 30-minute away from technology is essential. So if you have something playing in the background that will go off on its own, that's fine. I think it's having that direct eye contact with blue light is what makes it more difficult for you to sleep. But if you've got something playing in the background, that will be quite beneficial to help you relax.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. I've learnt loads this afternoon, so it's been really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming along. I think it's just nice to know, isn't it, that they're just things that you think that you've been feeling, that everyone else has been feeling as well, because sometimes you can just feel sort of like on your own. You think that you're coping okay with lockdown, and can't understand why you might be feeling a bit sort of like down or not coping so well. It's just nice to know. I mean, it's